Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Simply Reflecting. I'm your host, Dutch, and I'm so glad that you're here joining me for another episode, 3 episodes in a row. I don't even know if I've ever put out 3 episodes week to week to week, but here we are doing it again. And I'm just really happy to be here with you and to be talking. And I'm really excited about today's episode because it's something that I love talking about. I'm also a little nervous to do it. I've recorded like parts of this episode and then I've gone back and watched it and it wasn't giving what I wanted it to give. And so I've decided I'm just gonna take this. I'll probably end up cutting things, but you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go in with the energy of just like what I'm trying to say to you is I'm really excited because I'm talking about somebody that I love today, but that somebody that I love is no longer here. Really just dropped you into that. If it's like 8 a.m. and you're listening to this on your commute to work, I'm so sorry for dropping that. But I'm talking about somebody I love who's not here anymore, and that carries a certain weight with it that I want to do well, if that makes sense. So anyway, also, I have so many like things running in my mind. Happy Pride. Can't do the episode without saying Happy Pride. It's June, the best month of the year because it's Pride. It's June. It's the start of summer. It's my birthday month, okay? I'm actually not a big birthday person at all. I have a lot of stuff up around my birthday, but I'm trying to be more of a birthday person, and I do really love... Sounds like the Grim Reaper coming down the street. I don't know if you can hear that. I really do love the month of June as a whole for many different reasons. So with all that being said, let's get into this week's topic, which is somebody who I love dearly. I mentioned last episode that this time of year, I think I mentioned this, is a little hard for me because it's sort of like a loss puddle time of year, like loss, like LOSS, not like the TV show Lost, right? So it's kind of like which, by the way, I just have to say, the summer between I think it was the summer between it was either between 6th and 7th grade or 7th and 8th grade. Lost had already been out for like a number of seasons. I don't think it was over yet though. And my mom and I decided that summer we were gonna watch it. And we used to stay up until like, no lie, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. We're both like night owls, my mom in particular. And like we would stay up until like 3 o'clock in the morning watching the show. One night, I think we even stayed up until 4 a.m. watching the show. And we would get these like, I don't think they make them, I'm sure they don't make them anymore because I haven't seen them in years. But Skittles, I don't even like Skittles that much, but Skittles had this type called Crazy Cores. I think it was, yeah, they were called Crazy Cores. It was like 1 flavor, 2 flavors. I don't know what, my mother and I were obsessed with them. And the only place to get them was like, I think it was a Blockbuster. It was like the one remaining Blockbuster, which is kind of crazy because this would have been like 2010, 2009, around then. So like I thought Blockbuster, I can't speak. I thought Blockbuster, apparently I'm Dracula, was closed by then, but apparently this one wasn't, and they were the only place that sold these Crazy Cores. Honestly, they were probably like dead stock Skittles from like 2001 for all I know, but anyway, loss puddle is what I'm in. And you know, I obviously, if you've lost somebody, you know, anytime like around the anniversary of their death, you think about them more. And it's a heavy time of year for me. And I want to make the distinction though. It's not heavy for me because I think of her more. It's heavy for me because I think about my grief more. And I think those two things sort of exist in 2 different areas. Like, thinking about her as her memory is really a blessing. Like it brings me so much comfort and laughter and peace in a lot of ways, if that makes sense. And memories can bring up grief, of course, but for me, it's more this time of year. It's like almost like I guess you would call it like a trauma response. I'm not really sure, but it's like it's like as if I'm going through the week that she passed and the events and the memories and the moments, if that makes sense. And that is heavier for me. So if you are on your way to work right now at 8 a.m., I guess this is a little heavy, but I am going to try to make you laugh, I promise. But it is something that I've been thinking so much about, and particularly like the experience of grief and navigating that versus just like the loss. What I'm trying to say is I think so often our grief is centered on the thing that we've lost, right? The person we've lost, the home we've lost, the career we've lost, whatever it is that we've lost, because you can lose like a lot more than a person, right? They're not like more than a person. I don't mean like things are more than people. You get what I'm trying to say. It's a lot of things in the world to lose, right? And I think I have found for myself, sometimes my loss centers more on the thing that has been lost, the person that's been lost, than the experience of my loss. And sometimes, I'm getting like really out there, hopefully we get someplace and this will make sense, but sometimes it's actually the things that came along with the loss that are driving some of my grief. Obviously, it all comes back to the person no longer being here, but I also think about the things that grief took from me in the meantime, or that I handed over. Get into that. Right? In an attempt to not lose more things, if we really want to get into it. But what I'm trying to say is I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission sometimes to think about the ways that grief has affected us beyond just the actual loss of the person. I know for me sometimes I didn't want to think about that because it felt selfish. Like, no, my person is gone. I need to put all of my energy into thinking about them and them being gone. I can't take any time to address that them being gone has caused this cascade of things in my life, right? That just comes with grief. Like, not in a way of like blaming them. Like, that's not what it is, but it's like grief causes things, and those things that were caused also resulted in some grief, right? Also resulted in some loss, or also resulted in things that I need to navigate. So what I am trying to give myself permission to do, and not that you need me to give you permission, but I'm inviting you to give yourself permission too, if you're dealing with any sort of loss, is to allow yourself the space to grieve the things that came along with the loss, and to know that doesn't take away from the heaviness and their memory and all of that. Does that make sense? I hope that resonates somewhere in there. And I just wanted to say that is something that I think about a lot. Girls, the accents are coming out today. I don't know what it is. I'm being possessed. Not really. I can't say that. Oh, OCD on overdrive. I just literally was like, I'm being possessed. And then my mind was like, girl, don't say you're being possessed, because what if you actually become possessed? Because that could actually be a thing. Even though that's not something that is usually in my mind. Anyway, so that's just something I'm thinking about a lot. And what makes this time of year a little bit heavier, because I am processing through the trauma of the loss, I think, more readily now. So that being said, I just wanted to touch on that before we touch on her and her glorious spirit and being. And I just wanted to tell some stories. So when Jocelyn passed, literally the night that she passed, I started this text edit document. Now, I have to just say I'm a text edit girl. I know people love notes, people love Microsoft Word, Google Docs. If you have a Mac and you know about text edit, I've been locked into text edit like it's a Polly Pocket journal since I was 15 years old, since I got my first like Mac or whatever, right? So I started this immediately, opened up, click, clack, this text edit doc, literally the night of her passing. And I titled this document, I think it's called like All the Memories, All the Memories, a List, I think is what I called it. And I literally just started writing down everything I could think of, every memory, every nickname, every inside joke, any situation, any story that somebody else told me that didn't even involve me, but involved her. I was writing it down. And I did that in the days that followed, in the months and the years that have followed. Anytime I think of something, I write it down. And that list has been such a gift to me. I remember a lot of our stories, right? And as a side note, the memory, it's long, okay? Memory long. Maybe it's all the trauma. But I remember a lot. Like one of my dearest friends, Erin, she always laughs because she's like, how do you remember that? I remember the most obscure facts. We went to camp together in high school, this summer program for New York State kids. And anyway, we obscure friends of hers from her hometown. She was from Buffalo. I'm from New York, right? And random people that she grew up with, I would remember the name of and bring up years later. Anyway, it's what is it? Like a cow, like a steel trap, like a turtle, whatever the saying is for somebody that has a memory that runs a long time. What I'm trying to say to you is I remember a lot of memories on this list, but I don't remember all of them. And in the years that have followed, you do forget some things. And it's also been nice because I will reference this list from time to time. I'll go back to it. And it's the 3 or 4 stories that have been in my mind sort of go back into the library, and I borrow 3 or 4 new stories and then those get to live with me for a couple months and then they go back into the library, and like I don't have to worry about like, oh my God, am I gonna remember everything? So this is my Reddit life hack tip or whatever. I don't know if you search like what to do after somebody dies, Reddit, because if you put Reddit at the end of everything on a Google search, it like makes it 10 times better. You get the real information. Sirens confirming what I'm saying. Hold on, I'll wait for the sirens to pass. All right, sirens are gone. I think we're in the clear. What I'm trying to say to you, memory library, make one. Even if it's been years, just start writing down the thoughts, the stories that come to your mind about the people you've lost. It has been such a gift for me. It's like a library. Like I can go in, I can take out, I can do this. It's really been empowering in a way because I'm not worried that like I'm gonna lose a memory of something because I know it's on the list and you know what I'm saying? Like it's freed me to think more freely, if that makes sense. So I went into the library, I pulled some memories. They're not really in chronological order, but they do start all the way back when we first met, which was in middle school at the Summer Arts Institute, which was this summer program. It was run by the city, free program. You had to audition to get in, and they had all these different arts programs like dance and drama and visual art and singing and theater, like tech, like stage crew and stuff. Anyway, I had just started dancing. Very limited training, basically none. And I started dancing because I saw a TV show called Taking the Stage. It was on MTV. It followed these kids in Cincinnati at a performing arts high school, Malik, Shakira, and Jasmine. I think I might even be friends with some of them still on Facebook because I friended them on Facebook. I was obsessed with this show and the dancers, and I wanted to be a dancer, and I had zero interest in the performing arts until I saw this show or dance, and all of a sudden it was all I could think about and all I wanted to do. So my mom was like, we gotta find some programs, but dance is really expensive. So we found Summer Art. She was like, this is free, go audition. So I went on a tendu, a releve, and a prayer, and I auditioned, and I got in somehow, like truly somehow. And I went that summer, and that's where we first met. And one of the first things that I loved so much about Jocelyn was that she did not let me get by with anything, right? So for context, everybody in this program was amazing, phenomenal. They'd been dancing for years. They had the training, they had the skills. I was barely keeping up. Like I was working really hard, don't get me wrong, but I was not, right? And so sort of out of pity, sort of out of like not having to deal with me, understandably, like, you're like 11, 12 years, you're like 12 years old or whatever. You like dance is your life. Like you just want to be focused on it, right? People would sort of like, I don't want to say let me slide, but like didn't hold me to the same standard that they held the other dancers to. And she was one of the only people, her, the teacher, and one of our other friends, who held me to a standard, who was like, I don't really care that you've only been dancing for a few months, catch the step. And that was like the most empowering thing ever. And she was honest with me too. Like, that is not the step. You look a fool. Like, get it together. Do you know how to do this? Like, that is not fifth position or whatever it might be. That is not a flat back. That is not a releve or whatever, So she did that for me. And that was just such a gift from the jump. And there were so many ways that she liberated me to life and dance and experiencing the world in that way. And so that is sort of how we met, was at this summer program, and she was the only one that held me accountable and wouldn't let me get away with things. And the moment where I was like, oh, we're friends for life, like this is long time. We had to go to the American Ballet Theater at Lincoln Center. They gave us free tickets, like when like theater shows and stuff, they give out like tickets to like public schools and da-da-da-da. So one night after camp, we went to Lincoln Center to go see Swan Lake. American Ballet Theater was doing Swan Lake. Now, I and J Money, we were not ballet people very deeply. She likes ballet a little more than me. I am modern through and through, right? Especially like Horton, Graham, Taylor. Like, I want modern dance. Anyway, so I wasn't like thrilled about it. Even then, I wasn't like really obsessed. I didn't really like ballet. So we got to the theater. Our seats were all the way up in the nosebleed. Like those seats that are so high up in the stadium that are the theater or however, Stadium 2, that it's almost like you're standing up. You know what I'm saying? Like they're so narrow, they're so high up, you're like, ooh. So we were all the way back up there. I think we were literally like the second to last row. And it was also like all this drama at the show because they gave the good seats to the theater kids. What? Why did you put all the dance majors in the back row and all the theater majors in the like good seats up? They were like on a different level even. I think they weren't orchestra, but they were like a good level. Anyway, we're all the way back up there. It's the second act. We've gone through the first act and intermission. I'm sitting next to Joss. And all of a sudden I hear this like crinkling next to me. I look down. She is pulling out a full Chinese meal. I'm talking lo mein, fried rice, egg rolls, and the iced tea that comes in the quart containers with the punch through with the cutout hole for the straw. Okay, if you know, you know. In the middle of Lincoln Center. I'm looking over. She opens the lo mein. She hands me a fork. And she goes, should we start with like she has the lo mein open. She puts the fried rice on my lap. She goes, do you want to start with the fried rice or the lo mein? Oh my God, you guys, I lost it. Mind you, we're in middle school. We're like 12, 13, 12. We are at Lincoln Center. It's the first time I've ever seen a show like this. And we are chowing down on Chinese food and egg rolls. And it's the second act. I just want to emphasize that again. She sat through the whole first act and intermission with the Chinese food full on in her purse. She even had duck sauce. Anyway, and listen, I know maybe if you're like a theater etiquette person, you're cringing, but I promise you, we were so far up in the back. Odetta, whoever, I think it's Odetta in Swan Lake, she could not smell, maybe she could smell the lo mein, but I don't think she could. Okay, we were so far in the back, we weren't, the people around us were like asleep. It was, anyway, from that moment on, I was like, oh, locked in. We are locked in. So Chinese food at the ballet, I will literally never forget that. And sometimes I think about these memories and I'm like, I'm so glad that I wrote them down again because I'm like, there's literally no way we busted lo mein and fried rice out. She busted lo mein and fried rice out at the ballet, but she did. Egg rolls too, and the duck sauce. Oh my God. That was one of my favorite ones. So anyway, that sort of gives you like an image of how iconic she was, right? Like even in middle school, holding like my feet to the flame, get it together, and Chinese food at the ballet, right? So over the next few years, our lives just sort of like kept intertwining and we never really did it on purpose. Like we both just wound up auditioning for the Martha Graham School and we got into that program. They had a similar like public school teens program. And then I went to a different summer program a few years later that was like the going away version of SAI. It was run by the state. And one of my closest friends there was one of her really close friends from high school because we didn't go to the same school. And then we ended up going to college together. And not only just going to college together, we lived in the same dorm, on the same floor, a couple doors away from each other. And I always said at her memorial service that we did up at college, I talked about how she was we were always just sort of right next to each other. Somehow we always wound up like that. And when she passed, this is very vulnerable of me. When she passed, I remember thinking to myself very, very shortly after I got the news, I think I even said out loud, I was like, this is the person I'm supposed to be going to if somebody dies. And they're dead. Like, that was... Right, so sorry, I'm so sorry, trigger warning in reverse. But that's the type of friend that she was to me, right? And we had like our own, it was also such a great, I have such a special spot in my heart for these types of friends where like you're really close with them, but they have their own little friend group over here and you have your own little friend group over here and your friend groups totally hang out sometimes, but you're sort of like the two satellites from those friend groups and you're like, it's like you have everyday friends and then you have every other day friends, but you have some every other day friends who, when you get together with them every other day, it's like they're everyday friends. Does that make sense? That was like what we were. For example, the best way that I can set it up is like, I would just go to her dorm room and hang. We weren't have to do things friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't have to do anything, nothing. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get together with so-and-so and we're going to do an activity. Like, it was like, I'm just going to go knock on your door. You're just going to come knock on my door and make me turn all the lights off in my room so that you can FaceTime the boy that you were talking back home, because there's actually a boy in your room right now. And so you're going to pretend to use my room as your room. And the boy from back home is going to wonder why your comforter looks different because it's my comforter and not yours. And you're going to make up a story. And then you're going to ask me to go downstairs because some boy from your an anatomy and physiology class who has a crush on you is dropping off food, but you don't want to have to talk to him. So I'll pick up the food. Like, all true. And there are versions of that story that happen more than once. Like, that type of friend is what I'm trying to say. So college was just filled with so many iconic moments like the one I just shared. And she was also like the type of person who could convince anyone of anything. Like, she somehow always had everybody doing what she needed done, and everybody would willingly do it, like loved to do it. You know, those types of people. Like, we used to have this 8 a.m. music class. It was Harvard, freshman fall, Tuesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. music. Shout out to Professor Tamara, though. Loved her. The timing of it, music, it just wasn't for me, though. And we had to schlep these giant keyboards, like, that plugged into a computer every Thursday to the computer lab. And it was, like, super far away. And these pianos, they were, like, mad heavy. And we had to, anyway, somehow, Jocelyn convinced me to carry her piano, back to the dorms every day. I don't know why, because we had the same schedule. I don't know where she went after music. I don't know why she couldn't carry her piano back. But anyway, I would like always be carrying the piano. Or she had a bike, always had a bike. Somehow was always acquiring a bike. And if you lived in the city, our school was way up out there near Rochester. And it was very rural. And if you lived in the city, a lot of times you would rent a storage unit up there so you didn't have to schlep so much stuff home for the summer, right? And the storage units were like super cheap, like $100 or something for the summer. And so she would store her bike in my storage unit. So I would always have to like do an extra trip to fit the bike, right? We'd like put the bike in the back of our 1991 Ford, two-door Ford Explorer. One of the doors didn't open. The windows didn't roll down unless you slapped them. The radio was stolen. There was no AC. It had like bucket seats in the back, and you had to like unplug the spark or something every single time you parked the car, or it wouldn't start up. Anyway, we had to shut the bike to the storage unit. And then I would always be back on campus early for some reason, like helping out with some program or something. And so my mom would come, and actually both my divorced parents would usually come to drop off. That was an experience. And so, but they would, come drop me off, but they would have to leave. And so I would have to get the bike. And I literally would spend like the first 2 weeks back before everybody got back with like a bike in my dorm room, like literally in my room. Anyway, the bike, I would schlep the bike, the pianos, the laptop. Oh my God. It was one semester right before winter break. It was sophomore year. It was right before winter break. And she had already gone home. I was still there. And she had left her laptop in her dorm room. Now, I don't know if the RAs at your school were like this, but the RAs at my school were militant. They were horrible. They were so strict. And I get it. It's an important job. But like, I think they really relished in that. They loved it. Okay. They were some power hungry individuals. Anyway, they all went on to work in politics, I feel like, for the most part. But they would not let you, all this to say, they were not going to let me in her room to get her laptop, because she called me up and she was like, hey baby, can you go get my laptop and bring it back home to the city? And I was like, girl, they're not letting me in your room to get your laptop. And she was like, no, give me 5 minutes. I'll handle it. I'm like, they're not going to let me in your room. First of all, we didn't, at that point, sophomore year, we didn't live in the same dorm building. So I was like, we don't even live in the same dorm building. Like, I can't even like try to get into your room. Like, I can't even get into the building. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, she calls me back. She's like, all right, baby, go over there. There's so-and-so, like Jane or somebody. Janet is going to be at the front door. She's going to take you to my dorm room. I said, it's no way. I go over there. 5 minutes later, Janet is standing there. She opens the door. She says, are you Dutch? I say, yeah. She said, I'm really not supposed to be doing this, but, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I know. And I went in, got the laptop. I brought it back home. She then wanted me to deliver it to her house. I said, girl, you better come get it for me. And she did come get it for me, but I did actually end up going to the train station and meeting her there, so she didn't have to come through the turnstile. I passed it over to her. But, I would do that. I would do anything like that. And I would do anything like that 1,000 times over, because I also knew anytime I was going to do something like that, like I was going to be getting myself into an adventure, right? Like there was going to be a story, there was going to be an experience. And that was like the joy of it, and something I just loved so much, and something I try to like recreate in my own life still. Like how can the bike be a story? Like how could the laptop be a story? Like it was just always an adventure, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And all right, full disclosure, I did just pause the podcast and I'm back now with another fun story, but I am going to take a moment to be sad because I finished by saying like it was always an adventure, and sometimes you say things and they like hit you, and I can feel my face hurts a little bit because I'm smiling so much, and I am smiling so much because this is really happy for me. And I am taking a very vulnerable moment to just say I am sad at the same time. I think it's important to say that because I think as you hear me saying all of this, and maybe if you're somebody who also was earlier in their grief experience, you're thinking like, oh, maybe by the time I get to 9 years, I'll just be like laughing and kikiing about the stories and everything like that. And you will be, but you'll also might still be sad. Anyway, it was always an adventure. And I mean, like the little moments, I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that was like so that I try to do in my own life, is like making the little moments. Like, yes, there were some big adventures, but there were also just like a lot of really little ones, like her running into my room, turning the lights off and being like on FaceTime with a boyfriend back home. That's not like super out there, but it's like a little funny thing, right? Or like when we were opposite, like physically presented as opposites in pretty much every way that you could imagine. And up at where we went to school, back home, it like wasn't really that odd that we were like different, right? But up at school, it was very, it was a little scary, a little red, and it wasn't always like people up there, I guess, weren't used to like diversity. Like we used to joke that we were like the diversity. Anytime we'd see a campus photographer, we'd be like, diversity shot, come get our picture. Like, you think they're gonna put us on the diversity folder or something? Like, anyway, if she would see me across a room and it was a crowded room, she would start shouting and she would go, baby, baby. And everybody would be turning like, who is she talking to? And she would come running up to me. She'd give me a hug and she'd say to me like, let's make them stare. Like she'd whisper in my ear, like, make them stare. Or, you know, like, let's make them stare. Who's staring this time? And it was just like so iconic, so funny, and so brave. And like, I think that's another thing that I admire so much about her spirit and who she was, is her bravery to be as bold and brilliant as she was. It takes so much bravery to fully be yourself in the world. And I loved that so much about her. And I love that still so much about her because I still carry, you know, all that with me. And I'm not really a religious person, but I don't, like, energy never, gosh, I'm going to sound like my mother. Energy never dies. It just becomes something else. And I really believe that. And I think of that with her a lot because I talk about her in the past tense, obviously, but I also speak about her in the present because so much of her energy still informs all of our lives today, right? So anyway, those are just some stories. I hope they were kind of funny and a little iconic and gave you some insight into who she was as a person and the spirit that she brought into the world. And if you are in the midst of your own loss puddle experience, I am sending you so much love. Loss is such a hard thing. Grief is a big thing. It's something that I'm really interested in exploring and talking about, and maybe I'll do some more talking about it. And if it's something that you like talking about, let me know. I also had this idea. This is me saying this idea out loud because I'm scared of saying my IDs out loud. Anytime I say the word ID or IDs, I don't know if you've ever watched Monk, but there's this episode of Monk where he's like a detective. It's a little propaganda. You know my thing, how I'm trying to get away from the propaganda shows. Anyway, I used to watch it growing up, and he was up in a jury room, and Natalie, his assistant, was down, and she was shouting, no ID, and he was shouting, no idea. She was like, no ID, No idea. So anytime I say no idea, I think of no ID. My mom and I do that bit back and forth. And anyway, when I just said taking an idea, what was I even saying? Where did I even get this from? What I am going to say is, I think what I was trying to say is taking a cue from Miss J Money and her ability to be so brave with her ideas. I was saying idea. I was literally saying the word. Oh my God, where was it coming from? Ooh. It is 11:51 at night, so I'm pushing my bedtime a little bit here. I don't know why I'm recording these podcasts so late. I think I'm just going for that, like I said, that like sleepover vibe, but you can sleepover vibe, but you can go back to your bed when you're comfortable and do your own thing. It's like living with a roommate, but you have your own bedrooms. That was the best thing ever in college. Anyway, pulling all her energy, I'm speaking this idea out there. I would love one day to like have a show or do a show. I have an idea for the title of it. Well, I have a couple ideas for the title of it, but basically it's like talking to people about the people they love that have died. That sounds like, I feel like that sounded like the most basic sentence ever. And in my mind, it sounded so much cooler. And I was saying it out loud and I'm like, I have this idea for a show and it's talking to people about the people they love who have died. Like, if you've watched Overcompensating, it's a TV show that just came out about this character named Benny, and he's coming out in college and figuring that out. And there's a character in there played by Holmes, who is a comedian who I love, who I think is really funny. Anytime I've seen them, I think they're funny. And they're in the show, and they're kind of that type of character. It's sort of like, I have this really big idea. We're going to talk to people about dead people. Like, it's revolutionary. So maybe it's not revolutionary, but in my mind, it's a really cool thing because it's like, like I said, I love hearing about the people that other people love, and I feel like maybe other people do also. And getting to talk about somebody you love who has passed can be a really therapeutic. I mean, you do it in therapy all the time. Like, why not tell stories? Reflect on that. Simply reflect on that. Anyway, maybe it's not. You know what? I'm not going to say it's not a good idea. I'm going to say it's an idea that I had that I was excited about, and I'm going to keep rolling with that and see where it lands. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for going on this journey with me. And know that you have given me a really big gift this week by listening to this. So, all right. I love you all. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about next week because I filmed 2 episodes this week. So there will be an episode next week. I'm speaking it into existence, manifesting it. And I have to give myself a break because I'm yapped. I've been yapping. So, wait, did I already talk about that? Oh, I did. I was going to talk about class, but I already talked about that. It's all a blur. Anyway, I'm sure I'll come up with something else to talk about. And we'll do a Pride episode or something like that this month too. So all that being said, I love you. I've said that 10 different times. And I'm so glad that you chose to stay. And I can't wait until we're together again, simply reflecting. All right. Mwah.